What does losing weight on retatrutide actually feel like? One of the biggest misconceptions is that it somehow melts away fat. That, you take an injection, sit on the sofa, and you wake up with a six-pack. If only it worked like that. If only there was something that did that. However, there isn't. In reality, it's much more interesting than that. A bit about me, if you're new to the channel, I've been taking multiple different peptides for close to 3 years now, including retatrutide, and they've changed my life for the better. Indescribably helped me. And if that is something you are interested in, if peptides are something you may consider taking in the future, you definitely need to be educated before you take them, as I would heavily advise you not to take them if you don't know what you're talking about and you do not have an expert that can help you along the way. So, why is losing weight hard in the first place, okay? Almost everyone has tried dieting at some point, and usually it starts off great. You're eating healthy, you're motivated, you go to the gym, and then a week later, you're standing in your kitchen, convincing yourself that a second bar of chocolate won't hurt, okay? The problem isn't that people don't know how to lose weight, it's that people don't know how to follow through on what they know will help them lose weight. That's where hunger, cravings, and constantly thinking about food. This is where hunger, cravings, and constantly thinking about food can make it hard to lose weight, okay? As I was reading through the studies, this is where retatrutide gets interesting, okay? The researchers were not describing a drug that changes the laws of physics and somehow makes it so that you don't need a calorie deficit to lose weight. It's very simple how retatrutide works. It makes you want to eat less, okay? It makes eating less feel way more manageable for most people. So think about it like this. Imagine two people are in the same room trying to eat 500 calories less each day. Person A feels hungry all afternoon and they're constantly battling the thought of eating. Person B still has to commit to eating 500 less calories in the day. However, they feel satisfied much sooner, meaning they can eat, a lot less than person A and feel full. Their mind is not thinking about food 24/7, allowing them to do other tasks whilst also losing weight. And they just find it easier to have a grip on their hunger, So they're both eating fewer calories, assuming they both stick to their calorie deficit. But one experience is much different than the other because one person gets to live their life whilst losing weight. The other person's whole life will be focused on losing weight, okay? So does it actually make weight loss easy? Yes and no. Okay, it doesn't have a direct effect on weight loss. It has a direct effect on hunger, which in turn has a direct effect on weight loss. So, if we're being honest, it does make weight loss easier. The clinical trials were not testing whether people could eat whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, and also lose weight. The clinical trials were seeing how easy it allowed people to stick to their healthy habits. So, what you're going to notice first on retatrutide is your appetite will drop. You'll find yourself getting full sooner. You might finish your meal and realize, you know what, I'm actually done. I do not need to go and get thirds. Not because someone's forcing you to stop eating or you're not eating because you've got insane willpower. You just don't feel hungry. A lot of people describe thinking about food less often, and others say they're less interested in snacking. So you're still dieting, okay? You're still avoiding the food that you would usually eat if you were not on retatrutide. However, whilst you're avoiding that food, your mind is not taken up by the thought of still eating that food. You get a little bit of freedom in terms of you're not eating the food and you're also not thinking about the food. However, do not go into retatrutide expecting a miracle. Again, participants did not wake up with a six-pack. The results were built over 80 weeks. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to take 80 weeks for you to get results. However, it will not take a week. Now, the biggest mistake is thinking that if you had retatrutide, you won't need to change anything else. Now, it will heavily incline you to change everything else. However, that does not mean retatrutide in and of itself will make you lose weight. Retatrutide does not make you directly lose weight. Again, we've been through this. Retatrutide makes you less hungry. So my personal takeaway after reading a lot of studies on retatrutide, I don't think the most interesting thing about it is that it reduces the number on the scale, okay? It's that it addresses one of the biggest barriers to long-term weight loss, which is constantly feeling hungry. Frees up your mind, allowing you to lose weight and go on a diet without constantly feeling like you're missing out on something, okay? You're not going to constantly be thinking about the ice cream in your freezer. It's going to sit there, freeze over, and probably need to be thawed off in like 2 or 3 years. So, does it make weight loss easier? Of course, retatrutide makes weight loss easier. However, it does not make weight loss effortless. And in the next video, we're going to have a closer look at the other side of the story, which are the side effects of retatrutide. Because so far, you've probably only focused on the benefits. And if you want to take this, you need to know everything about it.